world of cable news screaming and social media echo chambers, it's easy to lose the signal in the noise. Every day, policy is debated, votes are cast, and your tax dollars are spent. We cut through the headlines to bring you the critical context you need, focusing on what's really going on in news and politics. Welcome to the Analytical Iowan Podcast. This is your daily dose of fact-driven politics. Let's analyze today's news. Here's Eric.
And we are back here on the Analytical Iowan Podcast. It is Saturday, February 14th. It is Valentine's Day as I am recording this. Now, recording this again much later at night, it may not get up until the early morning hours of Sunday the 15th. But barring any technical problems, hopefully, it'll be up relatively shortly. Been having some issues with my internet. We talked about that in a previous podcast where I've been having trouble getting my content uploaded. But we got a lot to talk about. Now, for those out celebrating Valentine's Day, I hope you had a great day today. And we've got some stuff to talk about. Like I said, we've always got stuff to talk about. When it comes to this administration, they do all sorts of wild and crazy and nuts stuff. Now, Donald Trump sent out a fundraising email, another one. What is he fundraising for? Who knows? He's not able to run again. So it's not like he is trying to fund his own campaign. He's not going to probably be using any of that money to help anybody else because that is not in Donald Trump's nature. He's not the type of person to do things to put somebody else first or to help somebody else. So why is he fundraising? Well, because it's a grift. He's going to try, unless somebody holds him accountable, to use that money for himself. I guarantee you he's going to at least attempt to say, well, I have all this money left. I'm no longer a candidate. I am going to put it into my own coffers. Now, there are limits as to what you can use campaign finances for. But see, Donald Trump doesn't care about any of that. He doesn't. Donald Trump is all about what is best for Donald. And if he has to grift his supporters yet again, he will. Now, we're seeing all kinds of videos of people walking away from Donald Trump online. At least they're coming out now saying, well, it's a bridge too far. It looks like he may be in the files. And that's kind of what I thought, is they're going to say the files are a bridge too far. Now, we haven't gotten to the point where Congress will step in and say, okay, it's time for you to go. But we're nearing that point, right? Now, of course, you are going to have all kinds of his supporters on social media. I think a good number of the Republicans, the diehards, the ones that come in with things with a picture of Trump as their profile and have a username like, MAGA 2028 or, Trump is king or something like that. And they come in and they say nothing but pro-Trump stuff, or they leave comments, Trump's your daddy, and things like that. A big chunk of those, I do believe, are bots. But there are still some that will support Donald Trump no matter what he does. And those are also the ones that are typically easily separated from their money. Now, Donald Trump is out campaigning and he sends this fundraising email, says, well, do you really love me, or do you still love me? Something like that. And basically send me money to prove you love me. How fucking bizarre, realistically. I mean, the people that fall for this, and I've said it before, we all know somebody, right? I'd say most of us know at least one person who has gone to a strip club and has come out with the idea and has genuinely believed that the stripper cares for them, right? But they don't realize it's a business transaction. Or to put it into a more modern perspective, that they fall for a girl that does OnlyFans or some other spicy content, adult content, where they have a chance to talk with them and, send messages back and forth, and they believe that they have a genuine connection. It's weird, right? They don't realize it is a business transaction. Now, I get, the whole idea is you're supposed to lose yourself to the fantasy and, enjoy it because it's fantasy, right? But at the end of the day, you need to be back into reality and realize that no, the OnlyFans girl does not actually care for you, typically. Um, Now, this doesn't count those people who are in an actual relationship with somebody who does that. You know, I'm not talking about them. I'm not talking about the legit couples out there, but I'm talking about somebody you've never met on in person and you've only messaged them or who you even thought was them. Some of them aren't even legitimately the ones messaging. They use messaging services or chat bots, and you only think you are talking to an actual person. Um, and we all know somebody who will fall for it, just like falling for the fact that the stripper still loves them. They're the same type of person that believes a billionaire like Donald Trump actually gives a damn. He doesn't. He only cares about emptying your pocketbook and to putting it into his bank account. So he's out trying to fundraise for Valentine's Day. Again, don't know what he's trying to fundraise for, but he's panicking because he feels that he is losing support. Now, why would he be losing support if everything he is doing is great? Well, because of the files, because the economy is not great. And even though he's not aware of it, people are, uh, there's a lot of talk about how not great the economy is. Um, all of his plans in for the world leaders are not treating him with the same level of respect that he got the first time, because they know what he's like and they've seen what is going on and they don't like what they see and they know how to manipulate him. Donald Trump is easily manipulated. He is a lot like his base, right? He can send out, well, do you love me emails, and they will send him his money, or they will send him their money. And, he can say things like, well, I'm going to lower your gas prices, or I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And because he gives them hope and he talks about how great they are, they buy into it. But see, Donald Trump's the same way. You give him a gift, you pat him on the back, you tell him he's a genius, and like South Park said, tell him that he doesn't have a small penis, and there you go. He'll give you and do whatever you want. I mean, this isn't new. World leaders have finally seen it, and he's too oblivious to everything going on around him that he doesn't even know he's being played anymore. He really thinks when these world leaders or like uh, when FIFA came in and they gave him the FIFA World Peace Prize or whatever, or these coal miners came in and they gave him the World Champion of Good Clean Coal Prize. He thinks that those awards that they are giving him, he may understand that they're bullshit awards, but what he doesn't understand and what he really thinks is that they're doing it because they genuinely like him, that they're doing it because they think good things about Donald Trump. And he believes everybody should think of him the way he thinks of himself. And I would venture to guess the majority of Americans now uh, do not like Donald Trump. His approval ratings are so bad that Gallup, the known pollster, the polling company that has done presidential approval ratings and has done other political polls, and they were one of, if not the main gold standard for polling, has said they are not going to be putting out presidential approval polls anymore. They're not doing it. And I think it's because they have either gotten pressure from Donald Trump or because they don't think that they're getting accurate information because some people are still saying that yes, they support him and they don't understand why the numbers are the way they are. But I think more of it has to do with they're getting pressure from Donald Trump. So at least until Trump is gone, they've said they're not putting out poll numbers. And that's a sign that his approval is so horrible um, that, you know, he's starting to suffer for it. Now, uh, Donald Trump is obviously a narcissist. We know this, right? We know that he is cracking under the pressure. He'll never admit it, but the pressure is getting to him. He's panicking. He can't distract away from the Epstein files. Nothing he is doing is distracting away from the Epstein files. And in fact, he is trying, I think, to get other people to help distract away. And one of the things that happened this week, we've talked about it earlier in the week, was Pam Bondi in front of the Congressional Oversight Committee and that was looking into um, the Epstein files, right? And she has this disastrous meeting in front of the Epstein committee. And as they're talking to her, one of the things she tries to come out and say, and she has gotten trolled for it online very hard, it was, well, the Dow's over 50,000, and it was at the time. It's gone back down. Um, and they're like, well, it had nothing to do with it. But I think she was told by Donald Trump, because that's one of his big distractions is, well, you should be happy with the job I'm doing. Look at the Dow. Look at the job approval numbers, etc. And here we sit, she has this disastrous thing, and she's trying to divert and distract in similar vein that Donald Trump is. Now, ultimately, Donald Trump is going to be gone. And there's going to come a point when whether the Big Mac gets him, whether the Republicans in Congress say, okay, enough is enough, and we have to move on, or whether the Democrats get back in charge and they impeach him, at some point, Donald Trump is going to be gone. And the people around him are not going to be saved. Now, in that congressional oversight hearing, Donald or Pam Bondi said, that there was no mention of Donald Trump in the files. And then Congressman Ted Lieu said, hold on, I think you perjured yourself. But she got mad. She comes back with, don't you dare say I broke the law. And he goes back with, no, I think you committed perjury. And it's on video. And he pointed out a passage that points to Donald Trump being in the Epstein files, plain as day. And he said, make no mistake about it. When we get power back, when we're back in charge of the House of Representatives, we are going to impeach you. And I think that is part of what is going to happen when this administration is finally gone. You are going to see something that maybe has never happened before. You are going to see multiple members of this administration be impeached. Now, are they going to be ultimately removed? Probably not. I don't think the Democrats are going to gain enough seats in the House or in the Senate in order to convict. They would need 67 total seats. They are going to be lucky to take control of the House of Representatives, or the House. They're going to be lucky to take control of the Senate, rather. I think the House is in the bag. I think they get the House no matter what. But looking at it, okay, we have uh, issues as far as everything goes. Everybody involved in this administration is going to be held accountable in one way, shape, or form. Whether that means just when the House flips back to the Democrats, I think you're going to see lots of investigations. They are going to dig deep into Donald Trump. They are going to look into everything in the administration. They are going to bring everything out into the light of day. And I think there's going to be significant push to remove some of these people. Now, Donald Trump, in his first term, had no problem firing staffers. He always would say, well, we only hire the best. But nobody has really gotten fired in this administration yet. Um, and I think in part it has to do with the fact that they are shielding him from a lot of what is actually being discussed. I don't think he knows how disastrous some of these people are to him. Like we were talking about Pam Bondi in front of the Oversight Committee. I think when she came back, he's going to say, how'd the meeting go? Oh, it went great. It went great. Well, did you tell him about the Dow? Oh, yeah, I mentioned the Dow. And he's going to say, good, and he's going to move on and he's not going to think about it. He's not being shown the clips of things in reality as far as what is happening and how bad it is looking. And they are keeping him very protected from the things that are, going on. He's not being told everything. We talked about it during his first administration because people were kissing his ass. They referred to it like the emperor's new clothes. You may remember that children's book where the emperor comes in and wants a new suit made or whatever. He's all about the finest clothes and all of that. And this tailor comes in and convinces the emperor that he has made this outfit for the king, for the emperor, of the finest silk and everything, and has stitched it together. And once the emperor puts it on, he's not wearing anything, but he has been told that it is this amazing outfit of the finest quality, and the people around him don't tell him anything, and they just say, "Yeah, oh, it's great, you look fabulous," etc. And he goes out walking around in public wearing nothing. That's what's going on here with Donald Trump. He is being told everything is fine, nothing's going wrong, and everything is going the way it should be. That's why when he comes out and says gas prices are down, grocery prices are down, inflation's down, he doesn't know because he has no natural curiosity to dig into it to actually look. Somebody tells him that's what he wants to hear, so he believes it. Now we all know people like that. I know several people in my own life that, depending on who told them something, they won't look into it any deeper. In some cases, it has to do with religion. Um, I've had conversations with certain people who have said, well, this priest said this. Well, why would they lie? Well, why wouldn't they? Depending on what we're talking about. What, they can't see past the point that certain people would have an agenda and would want to promote certain things in a certain way, right? So Donald Trump is being told everything he wants to hear and nothing he doesn't. Now, one of the things we've been talking about the last few days has been the SAVE Act. Now, it passed the House, and I'm seeing a lot of people going doom and gloom about the SAVE Act. First of all, I don't think it passes the Senate. Two reasons. One, Senate Majority Leader John Thune has said he doesn't have the votes to get rid of the filibuster to pass it. So they would need Democratic support. And the only Democrat that sounds like they want to support it is that Democrat, that so-called Democrat, um, Fetterman, John Fetterman. John Fetterman, ever since he had, I think it was a stroke or a mini stroke or something, has been sounding more and more Republican. He is the epitome, and you almost hate using this term, but he's effectively a dino, Democrat in name only. He has been siding more and more with Republicans. Hell, it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up switching parties. Now, uh, going back to the SAVE Act for a little bit, I don't think it passes the Senate. Okay. I'm not worried about it becoming law. Now, if you're not aware, what is the SAVE Act? The SAVE Act is this piece of legislation. This is like the third or the fourth time they have tried to push it through at the behest of Donald Trump. And they are trying to fix a problem that does not exist. Okay, they're trying to say, well, we're trying to prevent undocumented illegal immigrants from voting. First of all, every time they do audits of undocumented people voting, they don't find the numbers to support their claims. They claim that it's happening in the millions. Yet Utah uh, did an audit a while back, and you want to know how many people they found that were illegal immigrants, undocumented immigrants that were registered to vote, not ones that had voted, but were just registered to vote. It wasn't hundreds, it wasn't thousands, it was one. There was one undocumented immigrant who had registered to vote erroneously. And guess what? Had never cast a ballot. Georgia did an audit of their voter rolls, and it came up with, single digits of undocumented immigrants that were registered. Not even sure if they cast ballots, but the few that did had gotten caught and had been turned over to law enforcement. Now, that is why they don't, um, vote. Undocumented illegal immigrants don't vote in any large numbers at all. Why? Because they're trying to come in here. They want to work. They need to make money. And yes, they are sending a chunk of that money back to Mexico. I get it. Okay. But they are trying to they are trying to stay under the radar so they don't get caught. They don't get sent back. And under this administration, they don't want to deal with ICE. They don't want to deal with any of the bullshit with ICE and all of the crackdowns that they're doing and, getting deported and maybe ending up in a third country that they're not from. Because this administration doesn't give two shits. Oh, you came here from Honduras or whatever. You're here illegally. Well, we don't want you here. Honduras says they're not going to take you back. So we're going to send you to Nigeria. No big deal. We're just going to put you on a plane, send you over there. You have no connection there, but who cares? They said they'll take you. No big deal. Or, or we're going to send you down to, was it Ecuador and CCOT? I think that was Ecuador. Um, oh, we got a prison in a foreign country. They'll take you, and we're going to send you there. Even though jail is not a penalty, typically, for being in the country illegally. It's typically civil, and the penalty is removal. But this administration doesn't care about that. So undocumented immigrants are not voting in any significant number to affect elections. Now, for years, there have been exceptions to that, where they have been allowed to vote in local elections. Now, Donald Trump doesn't like that idea any more than let him vote anywhere else. But some cities do allow residents, regardless of immigration status, to vote for their mayor, their city council, their school board. Why? Because those are the people that are going to affect your everyday life. And they just said, well, you're here, we're going to allow it. Now, not every city allows it. Some states and some cities don't. I know here in Iowa, they are trying to make it so that the state has the final decision and that they are going to make it so no city in Iowa can allow um, immigrants that are here illegally undocumented to vote in any election for anything. And I understand both sides of that argument. I understand why you would want them to be able to vote because they are voting for people around them that are going to be affecting their daily lives. Your school board, your town council, your mayor, etc. Those policies are going to affect you. Now, if you vote in the wrong group into your city council, they may pass a local option sales tax that adds another, maybe it's a penny per dollar spent at every store on every purchase. Places have done that. And they'll say, well, it's going to go to schools or it's going to do this or it's going to do that, which sounds good on the surface. But then you need to dig deeper into it. Or, you don't vote for your school board or whatever. Well, even if you're here illegally, your children may be going to that school. You should have a say as to who's running the school board. I understand that, but I also understand the mindset of saying only American citizens should vote. And I think for uh, unless your state allows it for state reps, for anybody on the federal level, etc., no, it should be for American citizens only. Now, the SAVE Act is trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. And they want you to have um, a couple things. They want you to either have a voter ID. And the thing about this voter ID is the way they've described it is it would be an additional ID to your state issued driver's license or, um, just ID card, depending on whether or not you have a license. And that you would need it to vote. And the way I understand it is your real ID would not count. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, the real ID is that thing they put out. They have been trying for 20 years to get it to be approved, and get it implemented. And they finally started using it last year. It's the gold star on your ID where you have to go in, you have to put out uh, you have to provide your birth certificate to, the DMV or whoever, and you to get your ID, and that wouldn't be good enough. Now you would potentially need a passport. Well, there's a couple problems with the passports. Now I'm hearing that some of the areas like libraries that had been allowed to do passports are no longer going to be allowed to do the paperwork to provide people with passports. Beyond that, not everybody has one. Only about 50% of Americans have passports. So then you would need your ID and a birth certificate. Now you're going to see MAGAs come into the comments, and this is the exact effect that Republicans wanted. They want people talking like this, and they're going to say, well, why wouldn't you want to make your elections more secure? Because they're already secure. There are already rules and regulations in place, and it's a non-issue. And then they'll come back and say, well, see, Democrats just want no voter ID, so undocumented illegal immigrants can vote. Anybody can vote. Again, most states have requirements in place. This is just trying to get people riled up over a non-issue. Now, uh, the other thing with that is they want your ID to match your birth certificate. But if you have ever changed your uh, changed your name for any reason, well, is your ID going to match your birth certificate? No, unless you go get an official copy of it changed. So then now what? Well, okay, you would need your ID, you would need your birth certificate to go vote, and you would need a copy of your name change form. And at every step of the way, you would need more documentation. And copies of that documentation are not free. Okay. I don't know what the current rate is for a birth certificate here in Iowa. I looked several years ago and it was like 25, $30, something like that. Probably even more now. But see, this is where Republicans typically don't care. The MAGA voter doesn't care, right? They look at it and go, well, I have mine. Why wouldn't you have yours? There are all kinds of reasons as to why you would not have a copy of your birth certificate. First of all, when was the last time you needed it for anything? When was the last time I needed my birth certificate? I couldn't tell you. Okay? I haven't gone looking for mine in years. I know where it is. I know where I can get a copy of it. Um, but I don't have one right now. It's, and I know I'm not alone. Okay? So if I wanted to go get a birth certificate, I'd have to go courthouse or to the State Department of Vital Records and pay the fee, get a copy. In some cases, it like if I know if you go to the state Department of Vital Records, like for people who are adopted, um, they can't go to the local county courthouse. They have to go to the state, and it's not a same day thing. Like you go down, you have I think you still have to do it in person. You have to put in the request, and then it takes a couple of weeks. It adds steps. It adds complications. Now, you get a copy of your birth certificate. You get all of your name change forms every time you've changed your name, etc. And they still may not accept that documentation, right? They want more documentation to make it harder to vote. It's going to affect everybody, not just people in blue states, not just immigrants, everybody. But see, Republicans, specifically MAGA Republicans, we've got a bunch around here that are just like this, right? They have lived in the same small town for their entire life, the same small town their parents lived in, and in some cases, the same small town their grandparents lived in. And if it's not the same small town, it's in the same county. They haven't moved very far. So going to the local courthouse and getting a copy of your birth certificate is relatively simple for them. And they say, well, it's not that hard. Just go to the courthouse, go get your birth certificate. Okay. From my graduating class, just thinking of a few of the people we have. I know we've got one graduate who ended up in New York City. We've got another that's in Myrtle Beach. We got one in Denver. One was in Florida before he passed away. That's just four or five. Okay, if they need to go get a copy of their birth certificate, guess what? And if you can't request it online, that means that they're booking a flight. They're taking a road trip. They're going back from New York or the Carolinas or um, Florida or Colorado or whatever to Iowa to get that copy just so they can go vote. Now, how many people do you think are going to do that? Now that's Democrats, and that's the point, right? The Republicans are trying to get Democrats to not vote. But what they don't realize is it's going to disproportionately affect red states as well. If you need to have all that documentation, some Republicans are going to have it. And if they say, well, just use your passport, a large number of MAGA Republicans don't travel internationally. Not all of them, but a significant number do not do international travel. Only half of Americans have a passport, and they're trying to make it harder to get one. So that's not going to work either. Now, your Republicans are going to say, well, you should have an ID to go vote. Iowa already requires it. I need to prove who I am to go vote. But they also have a couple other ways you can prove your identity. Now, official mail is one way. I think it's two pieces of mail, and you can show up. You got two things that are official. Maybe you got a letter for jury duty summons and you got a water bill or whatever. You show up, here's my two pieces of mail. I don't have an ID, but this proves who I am. They give you a provisional ballot, and provided nobody else tries to come in and claim that they are the person that you claim to be, your ballot will count. Same thing happens when you vote at a precinct that isn't the right one. Now, like here in my town, there's like 4 or 5 locations you can go vote at come election day. Well, if you've moved and you go to the wrong location, because hey, especially now that it's getting later and later in life for people to buy houses, um, because they can't afford them, they're renting more. Well, and one of the things I know people are doing is, well, why would I continue living here when you're raising my rent and I can go rent from somebody else for less money? So they're more willing to move. And when you move, it could change your polling location. So if you go vote at the wrong location, even if you have an ID, they'll give you a provisional ballot. Provided nobody else tries to cast a ballot as you, well, there you go. You get your vote counted. There's already things in place to prove ID. It's a bad faith argument. Now, Donald Trump is trying to pressure congressional Republicans to uh, kill the filibuster and push this through. John Thune sounds like he is saying they don't have the votes to uh, push it through. They don't. So he's getting mad. Donald Trump has said he's going to do it alone and he's going to sign an executive order. Now, first of all, if you look at the post where he talks about going it alone, I don't believe he wrote that. First of all, it is too well thought out. It is grammatically correct. It doesn't have his flair for weirdly capitalized words, etc. Somebody else wrote that. And he says he has dug into it and he's going to be presenting a legal argument that and he is going to come out and he's read through all the legal opinions and he's going to have an executive order on it and he's going to make it happen. Two things. One, I know he didn't read through any legal opinions. Donald Trump barely reads anything as is, and he is not going to have the mentality to read legal opinions. They're pretty dry, they are pretty boring. So I just don't believe that he read through any legal opinions. So somebody else is giving him this information. And uh, two, he already tried this last year. He signed an executive order trying to require a birth certificate and voter ID and eliminating mail-in balloting and all this. He tried this before, and a judge has already said no, and they never appealed it, as far as I know. I don't think that they said they were going to appeal it. They never did. At least if they have appealed it, it was never reported on that I saw. Okay, so uh, there is not a way for him to just sign an executive order to do that. Besides, elections are ran by the state, and the Constitution is very clear that the state is the one responsible for determining the time, the place, and the manner in which elections are held. And there have been court cases in the past, including a Supreme Court case from the 70s, that said oversight of the election is up to Congress, not the executive branch. And the case, it was really technical. It was on whether or not a recount could screw up certification or something. And it basically, the court ruled that recounts don't screw up certification. All it does is provide more evidence for the Congress to, or the particular chamber of Congress to look at and review and decide if it was um, legit. But see, Donald Trump is trying to muddy the waters when it comes to all of this. He wants you to go ahead and be afraid. He wants you to go ahead and say, oh, yeah, he can do all this. Like they seized the voting records in Georgia. Well, now most of those cases at this point, most of those elections from 2020 are null and void, not necessarily because uh, anything else has happened, but because for like the members of Congress, guess what? There have been two additional elections since then. Some of those members that got voted in are no longer in their seats because they got voted out or they retired or whatever. Some of those senators that got voted in, we are almost up to the point where the senators that were elected in 2020 are up for reelection in 2026. It's getting to the point where it's a moot point. But he's trying to prove that he really won because his ego won't let him accept the fact that he lost. Well, by them going through and seizing voting machines and ballots and all of this, they have now broken chain of custody. Um, and this could potentially affect things later on. Now there are lawsuits in effect trying to get the ballots back and prevent them from uh, doing anything, but it's all about sowing doubt into the election. Donald Trump is trying to put into play an excuse for why he lost the midterms. I mean, you can hear it already. He's going to say, "Oh, the only reason I lost the midterms is those damn Democrats. They cheated. I tried to stop them, but they cheated." They are trying to set up a narrative about the election. They are trying very hard to convince their base that he didn't really lose. Donald Trump is terrified. He is panicking over the midterms. How? Well, I mean, just look at it. He is worried that he is going to be impeached again. And I mean, it would be a third impeachment. Democrats have already said, at least some have said, that they are going to impeach Pam Bondi, that they are going to impeach her if they get the House again for perjury, among other things, for the way ICE is operating and all of this. Would be for Kristi Noem. Numerous members of this administration could be facing consequences. And Donald Trump's terrified. He doesn't want to be impeached. And he knows if he loses the House, that he gets nothing out of it, that he gets nothing going forward. And I think the House is a foregone conclusion. I think they take the House, Democrats do, by 30, 40, maybe 50 seats. Now, the Senate is another uh, story. They would need to take the Senate. They would need at least four, maybe five seats, depending on Fetterman. Um, I don't know that we can count on Fetterman continuing to be a Democrat. Um, our best hope would be for him to retire, resign, whatever you want to call it, and for Shapiro in Pennsylvania to be able to appoint a Democrat. Now, how can we take the Senate? So we can't count on Fetterman. So we need to look at picking up potentially four. Four would get us uh, the Senate with Fetterman. Five would be if we can't count on him. Now, why do I say four? Well, currently the Democrats hold 47 seats, counting two independents that caucus with Democrats. 47 plus 4 is 51. Now, you need a majority in the Senate to have control. But if it was split 50-50, what would happen? Well, the vice president would be the tie-breaking vote to decide which party was in charge. And right now, that would be J.D. Vance, a Republican. So Democrats need to pick up four, possibly five, and anything above that would be um, gravy at that point. Now, what seats are potential pickups? Now, some people will disagree with me on these. Um, I think Alaska is a potential flip. There is a very popular Democrat former Representative Mary Patola, a very popular Democrat in Alaska, has entered the race, considering could be a pickup. Now, Alaska is a weird state when it comes to voting. They are one of the few that uses ranked choice. Now, what is ranked choice voting? Okay, for example, if you have five candidates, you would have you rank your choices 1 to 5, who you want first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. And let's say candidate C ends up getting the least amount of votes for people saying they want them at number one. Okay, then everybody who voted for candidate C, they go on, they look at their number two choice, and they add them into the other four. Okay, and if nobody's over 50%, then they throw out the next lowest and then the next lowest until they are down to two, or whenever somebody gets over 50%. So it is possible between ranked choice voting and a very popular Democrat that the Democrats could pick up Alaska. Outside chance, but could happen. Then you have Ohio with Sherrod Brown, um, who uh, who had won statewide before. Sherrod Brown just got beat 2 years ago. Now he's running for the other Senate seat this time, uh, but again, has been somebody who could win statewide in Ohio. It's possible. It is a possible flip. I'm not ruling out Ohio. A lot of people are and saying polling says it's not going to flip or whatever. I'm saying I'm looking at it could happen outside, maybe an outside chance, but it's possible. Then you go to Maine. Graham Plattner looks like he is going to potentially be the nominee. And I think if you get Graham Plattner could end up beating Susan Collins. Now, Susan Collins is an independent who's always concerned about something. She always has concerns, but then never acts on them. And there's been a lot of clips, at least I've seen a lot of clips floating around TikTok about her saying, well, I'm only going to be a two-term senator when she ran the first time. This would be, if she gets elected, her sixth term. She said she was only going to serve 12 years initially if she got elected, and now she's going on 30 plus. There is an outside chance that Susan Collins gets beat. That's three. Iowa. I think Iowa has a good chance of flipping. Now, the Democrats for Iowa, none of them I recognize as far as being prominent members out there. There are no locks as far as I'm concerned, no guarantees, but uh, Iowa does not have an incumbent going into this race. And with things being as bad as they have been here in Iowa, in part because of Donald Trump fucking with tariffs and the economy and it's screwing over farmers and everything else, I think there is a good chance that Iowa could flip. Okay. Then you go to Texas. And Texas is one of those states that most people would write off, but I don't think so. You got Tallarico and you've got Jasmine Crockett both in the running for the primary. And I think either one of them could potentially win in November. However, what makes this more interesting is you have got James Cornyn, who is the current senator for uh, Texas, being primaried by Ken Paxton. And Ken Paxton is that indicted, charged piece of shit from that was the or is the attorney general right now, who almost got impeached by his own party, or he did get impeached, almost got removed by his own party in Texas because they don't like that guy. And then you have uh, he's actually running a very stiff campaign against James Cornyn. If Paxton wins that primary, gives a boost to the Democrats. It really boosts the Democrats. Okay, but even so, even if he doesn't, the fact that James Cornyn is being primaried at all is huge, right? They could use that. They could spin it. It could lead to a Democratic pickup. Now, there's no guarantee any of those seats. And I forgot North Carolina with Roy Cooper. Roy Cooper is another seat that could flip. Very popular Democratic governor. Only reason he is not running for reelection as governor is because he's term limited, so he's going to run for Senate. Has already won statewide, could flip the seat. Big chance for the Democrats there. Now, when all that's said and done, can they pick up 4, maybe 5? Outside chance. Then you add in the fact that Mitch McConnell, about a week ago, had been hospitalized for flu. He's out now. He pulled through, but there was some speculation that he may not make it. Now, Mitch McConnell is retiring at the end of this term. And I think if he retires, it's less likely that seat flips. However, if he doesn't make it, if he does pass in office, and Andy Bashir is able to fill that seat, Andy Bashir has said he would put in a Democrat, regardless of what the state legislature wants. Adding in an incumbency to that seat could be one that the Democrats would then have to hold, but they could end up picking up a seat there. The Democrats picking up the Senate is an outside chance, but it's very important if they can do it that they do pick up the Senate. Now, why is it important? Well, none of Donald Trump's nominees would get through for anything. And one of the things you're going to have to watch, or we're going to be watching, is whether or not one, maybe two Supreme Court justices try to retire during this remaining time of Donald Trump's administration. You're looking at Alito and Thomas. Now, both like to hold on to power. I don't know that they are ready to retire. There has been some reporting. Alito has a book coming out, and the time frame of when he would need to go promote his book conflicts with the upcoming start of the next Supreme Court term, which would start in October. So there's a lot of speculation that he could retire. Now, if he retires, they're going to want to push through a Republican, a conservative, somebody like Gorsuch or Kavanaugh or Amy Coney Barrett. However, if the Democrats have control of the Senate, they could force Donald Trump to have to pick a moderate. Now, does that mean that is good for the Democrats? No, but a moderate at least would be better than a far right conservative. The other thing is the Senate only has to vote yes or no. He could keep putting up picks and they could vote every single one of them down and keep that seat open. If they choose to do that, I would hope that the Democrats would not play the same games Republicans do and just say, no, we're not holding a vote, but rather hold the vote and keep voting the nominees down. So you can say, yeah, we did our job. We're supposed to give consent. We don't consent. We don't approve. That is the way they should have done it. And if going all the way back to 2016, if when Mitch McConnell and our senator here in Iowa, Chuck Grassley, had turned around and said, okay, we're going to hold the vote, and they voted down Merrick Garland, I wouldn't have had as big of a problem with them keeping the seat open if they would have shot him down. Obama appointed somebody else. They said no to them. The problem was they didn't have the votes to say no to Merrick Garland at the time. So rather than just hold a vote and say, okay, yeah, we approve, they said, we're just not going to hold a vote. I hope Democrats don't play that same game, but rather actually hold the vote and say, no, your pick is too drastic. Embarrass the shit out of Donald Trump. Or if he's president by then, because Donald Trump kicked the bucket or what have you, J.D. Vance, embarrass the shit out of these motherfuckers by rejecting their picks. It doesn't happen very often that a Supreme Court justice gets turned away when they get appointed by the Senate, or then they get appointed by a president and the Senate has to confirm. It's not often, but I think that would be more embarrassing to this administration and to these Republicans if your picks keep getting shot down instead of just ignored. All right, that is going to do it for today's episode of the Analytical Iowan podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time to join me today. Hope you have a great day, and I will be back tomorrow because there's always stuff to talk about.
That was Eric. That does it for our analysis today. If you appreciated us cutting through the noise to get to the critical context, please make sure you're subscribed to the Analytical Iowan podcast on Spotify and YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for listening.